Good afternoon, Rythmia, Facebook. It's Jerry coming to you from Rythmia Life Advancement Center in Guanacaste, Costa Rica. I just got back from vacation last week in Turks and Caicos. I had an amazing time. I got to spend time with my son and a group of friends, and I drank too much. I ate way too much, and I got the perfect amount of water and sun. And I'm ready to go back into the Rythmia groove and ready to go. Glad that you're here. Today's broadcast is called Go Big #1, and it's about business advice from what I've learned from both the medicine and my life experience with these little companies that I ran. A little bit about Rythmia. Over 2,500 TripAdvisor 5-star reviews, 17,000 guests through the door, 98.41% of those guests that have come through. So that's 984 out of every 1,000 people have claimed they had a life-changing miracle during their stay. Better than that, at the 6-month mark, 90.22%, 9 out of 10, 90 out of 100, say that this was the week that changed their life. What's this little place in Costa Rica? What's it all about? And why do so many famous people come here and all that? Well, let's look at our board of directors. Michael Bernard Beckwith, founder of the Agape Spiritual Center, co-author of The Secret. Jack Canfield from Chicken Soup of the Soul. Kelly Slater, the greatest surfer of all time. Ron White, the amazing comedian. Caesar Milan, the dog whisperer, and many, many more sit on our board. Why? Martin Luther King's son, Martin. Why? Because they came here and they had this amazing experience and wanted to share it with others. Not because they get anything for doing it, because they want to share it. That's how amazing this place is. So, like I said, over 17,000 people through the door. What is the normal system? People come here, they have a soul merger. So the real quick story on that, sometime between when you're conceived and about 5, 6 years old, something happens to your life and a fissure is created between your soul and your ego. And the rest of your life, you're trying to fill up that fissure. And that's your soul's journey, your hero's journey. And then something like Rythmia happens and puts it back together. And then immediately thereafter, you want to become a beneficial presence on the planet. That's the story. That's how it works. So one of the things, so that system looks like this. You decide to become a beneficial presence. You pick this thing from this merged place in you where you see that you're going to benefit those of the souls around you, the planet, or however you become a beneficial presence here. And then you start this ceremony. I call it a ceremony. It takes anywhere between 7 to 30 years to complete this quest. And it is a ceremony. It's an ayahuasca ceremony of life. This is what happens. And this is titled Go Big. And I'm going to tell you what I've learned from doing this. That if you do not feel imposter syndrome, people always write about imposter syndrome, some of them as if it's a bad thing. If you don't feel it, you haven't gone big enough. If you don't feel it, you haven't gone big enough. And I want to talk about that. Or haven't gone big enough and haven't stepped out of your comfort zone enough during this process, right? Because we should always feel, even when we obtain mastery, we should be expanding our outer edge so much that it also always feels a little impostery. So I'm going to tell you about my my little successes in my 20s. I managed to save $1 million when I was a young guy. In my 30s, I took a company public, and in my late 30s, I sold a company for about $90 million, right? And I'm going to show you how each one of these things, every time that I did it, I felt like, what is wrong with me? So When I was young, I was a real estate developer. I didn't have a high school education, didn't go to college, no high school education. And I always felt like I don't even know what I'm doing, but I did know what people wanted. That I connected to, but I always felt like an imposter because I was always up against big companies where everybody understood everything that there was to understand about real estate development, and I ended up getting good at it, but always felt like an imposter in the beginning. My next business is I had a friend who was a plastic surgeon, and you have to remind yourself, I wasn't a doctor, didn't have a high school diploma, and I went to his office and I met with him and I watched how they were doing things. And I thought, oh my God, I could improve this business 300%. That's what I thought. So I went out and I thought of how I would run the business, and I wrote it all out, and I looked at it and I thought, I'm right. I really am right. And I said, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do this thing. And over the course of the next 7 years, I raised $70 million. I revolutionized the plastic surgery industry. I built the largest organized plastic surgery company in the world. And I did that, not being a doctor, not having a high school diploma, not having a business degree. And then life goes on years. And so imagine what an imposter I felt like, because the whole time there was a bunch of plastic surgeons. I ended up employing about 200 plastic surgeons, but there was a bunch who said I was going to ruin the industry. I was terrible for the industry. I didn't know what I was doing, blah, 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 blah. Yep. And so that's how that occurred. Then I go through all my trials and tribulations in life, and I do plant medicine, and I get told to go do this center. Now you got to understand, when I did plant medicine, within a few months I had bought this place. I didn't know anything about shamanism, very little about spirituality, a little bit about business because I've been in business so long, but nothing about the psychology of plant medicine or how this thing would come together, nothing about yoga, meditation, or breath work. I knew a little bit about agape because I was there so often, and I didn't know anything. And I said, we are going to build the best and the biggest plant medicine center in the world. And we did. And each time throughout this whole thing, I felt like an imposter. From every business I've ever owned, if you're not feeling like an imposter, you're not pushing your leading edge enough. So you get to choose between safety and expansion. It's your choice. And each of them feels different. And I want to tell you what I found. In nature, there is no such thing as safety. So really, all you have left is expansion. Because of entropy, because as a plant or animal, at some point you're going to be eaten, beat up, you're going to die. There's no way. Safety is an illusion in the universe. It's an illusion. So those who opt for safety instead of expansion wind up bitter. They wind up bitter. So I'm going to say constantly expand. Feel like an imposter. And I got to tell you something. Every time in my life, when I look at, like, there's this picture of Jeff Bezos and he's sitting behind a church table as a desk with an Amazon logo on the back of the thing. And I think, wow, that's the real imposter, right? Because he said, I have a church table, I have a decal on a wall, I have a telephone, and I'm going to revolutionize the way consumers shop in the world. What a big one, huh? Wow. I would love to feel that kind of impostership. So what I'm going to tell you is, in this world of being an imposter, if you have a real understanding of the user experience, and you know what people want, or you imagine what people would want, you're 50% not an imposter. I had a friend who was a really successful movie producer who's no longer with us. And he said to me, he said, Jerry, anybody can be a movie producer. All you really have to know is how you want the story to feel to you. And you can be a producer. So I'm going to tell you this. The biggest mistakes I've ever made have been by not going big enough. You know, when I look at people like Jeff Bezos and like Elon Musk and Richard Branson and Steve Jobs, and I look at all that whole group of people, Henry Ford, the folks that have gone before me and even contemporaneously with me, and I look at how big they went, and I thought I had some ideas that were so big that I talked myself out of them. I'm going to tell you, don't make that mistake. It's never too big. You're never too old. You're never too young, because the act of bringing these things to life is an act of aiming, missing, correcting, and moving forward. Aiming, missing, correcting, and moving forward. Now, it's just as hard in the world of raising money. As a matter of fact, it's harder. It's harder to raise $1 million than it is to raise $100 million. It really is. It's harder to raise, you really want a hard task? Go try to find startup money and look for $50,000 amongst family and friends who don't believe in you. You want a hard task? Go do that. What I'm going to tell you is that by dreaming big and that by going big, you can never go wrong. It's so funny because when we have no money, you're thinking, how can I raise money? So then you raise money, you become your own success. And then you realize once you're successful, how hard it is to find a home to get returns on a chunk of $10 million. Those people with the money have a problem and you're the solution. You really are, but you have to think of it in an upside down manner. So I'm going to tell you that going big is your secret. And when you go big, you're going to feel like an imposter. And once you stop feeling like an imposter, it's time for you to stretch again. It is. And here's an example of this. Do you remember when Michael Jordan was at the tippity top of his basketball game? What did he do? He went to play baseball. And he wasn't great. And he played a lot of golf. In the beginning, he wasn't great. So I'm going to tell you that feeling of imposter, of expansion, of moving into the unknown is all part of being big and of going big. And it's all part of your hero's journey. And you get to choose how you do it. You get to choose the illusion of safety or the realness of expansion. It's your choice. You get a beautiful choice. So listen, come to Rythmia, come here. And I still can't believe this. Every week that I'm here and people are leaving and they're crying to me. I didn't know life could be this good. I wish I did this before. You're changing the world, blah, 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 which I love to hear. I thrive off that. But when I see it and I realize that we're really doing it, this place really exists, and you can really come here and have this thing happen to you, by all means, get here, please. The world needs so much hope and help right now, and you can do it once you're merged. Please come, get here, and make the difference. Thank you. Until next week, God keep you, God hold you, God bless you, and we will see you then.